What's up YouTube? This is Dennis Panuta for tutorialsEU. In this video we're going to build a pixel bot, and this pixel bot will allow us to double click on a particular pixel in our screen. And in order to figure out which pixel that is, we can use Instant Eyedropper, which is a little tool that allows me to find out the color of a particular pixel. So here I have this application installed. You can use the same one. You can also use other ones. And this allows me to simply click on a pixel and get the whole color. As you can see, in this case, it's #7F5934. And if I paste it in my pixelbot application and search that pixel, it will, after a couple of seconds, come up and it will show where the pixel was found. And once I press OK or enter, my mouse will automatically go over to that particular pixel color. And as you can see, in my case, it opens up Assassin's Creed. And even though I would love to play this game, I first of all need to show you how to use this pixel bot. So let's go right into how this pixel bot works. Creating a pixel bot in C#. So how does this pixel bot work? Well, we have a particular pixel, and as you can see, there is the width and the height of our screen. And in this case, the current pixel has the color F0FF00, for example. And if we then copy this color into our pixel bot, it will search for that color and it will click on that color or double click on that pixel with that color. And of course, this F0FF00 is the hex code for a particular color. And every single color has a particular hex code, and we can simply enter that into our application and it will search for that color and it will understand that we're talking about a color. So we'll need some code in order to do so. And we have two challenges. One of them is to search the entire screen for a specific color defined by the hex value the user enters. And the other one is when a pixel with a specific color is found, take note of that X and Y screen position of the pixel and click on it. So that's really the idea behind our bot. It's not much more than that, but this is already quite good stuff because you can go ahead and build a little bot for you, for example, for your video games, or if you have specific processes that always have to go the same way, so always have to press button A, then button B, or something like that, you can use this pixel bot for it. All right, so let's go to Visual Studio because we are going to use Visual Studio, C#, .NET Framework, and also, of course, WPF in order to build this application. And now you, of course, have multiple options. One of them is you can build the whole thing yourself, following along with the video. You can download the prepared version of this project where you can simply add the code that we add throughout the video, or you can download the final project and just follow along and try to understand what's going on so that you can later extend the program by your will. Okay, so what we have here is Visual Studio, of course, and we create a new project. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new WPF project, which I'm going to call Pixel Bot. And by the way, if you do not have WPF as an option here, you need to install it in your Visual Studio installer. So in here, in your installed Visual Studio community version, you just modify and then you select the WPF element. In here you can see .NET Desktop Development Build WPF is included. That's exactly what we need. All right, so let's go ahead and create that project. And the first thing we see is our main window. And of course, I could show you every single step of that WPF, but this video is not about WPF, it's about this little pixel bot. And if you want to learn more about WPF, you can check out the link in the description because I've also created a video on WPF. So if you want to learn more about Windows Presentation Foundation, check that out. So for now, I have just copied and pasted the code. You can simply copy and paste the code yourself. What's important is that the name that you have for your project should be the same name as you have used here for the namespace. So what's going on here is simply that we have a title for our window. We have a specific height, a width, and we say that it has a resize mode of no resize, so we cannot resize this program. It has a specific background color, and then we have a grid in which we have two elements, and one of them is a button and the other one is a text box. So this code is not perfectly optimized. It's not great WPF code because we are using a grid, but we're not saying that this is in the first row and this is in the second row. We just dragged it in, and yeah, Visual Studio did the magic for us. If you want to know how it's really done, of course, you can check out my other video. Okay, so we have a button and a text box, and what's really important here is the click event that we have here, which is called onButtonSearchPixelClick, because we need to create a particular function or method which will then run and execute the code that we wanted to execute once we click on that button. So we can copy this particular name here, onButtonSearchClick, and check out what happens when we click on the button. So I need to go ahead and create a private void onButtonSearchPixelClick method. And here I need the object sender and the rooted event args. And I'm just going to call them E. So this method will be called once we click on the button. And in order to see if that actually works, I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm just going to use a message box here, which will just display hello world once we click on that button. So this message box is basically just a little pop-up which comes up, and that's what message boxes are really for. The show method is just saying, okay, this is going to be the text that I'm going to display. Of course, message box can be extended, so you can change it as you please. But now let's just test if our program works and if the button works. All right, so there we have our little pixel bot, and I'm just gonna press the button, and as you can see, hello world is popped up here in a message box. So this thing here is a message box, and it has an OK button, and you could of course extend it to have multiple buttons and so forth. Okay, but we're going to keep it simple, and we just test it if our button works. All right, so now that we have our button, we next need to find if a specific color is on our screen. So the color to search for is defined by a hex value the user enters. So for example, 6 times F after the hashtag, which pretty much is just the color white. Then we include all connected screens in case there is more than one connected monitor. So there are multiple different ways of doing this pixel bot, and one of them is only considering one screen, but the best practices would be to really not be dependent on how many screens there are, so be completely independent. So we're going to use code for that. We have very specific code prepared for this. When then a pixel with the specified color is found, take note of the X and Y screen position of that pixel. And of course, afterwards, we want to double click on that pixel, but that will be step 2. So let's go ahead and do step 1 first. Let's go back to Visual Studio for this. In order to find out which color the user has entered, we need to get it from this text box hex color. So this little text box here where you currently see hashtag 6 times F is the one that we are going to need. So we need to take its name. So the name of it is called text box hex color. And the cool thing is we can directly access its text. So let's create a little string here, input hex color code, which will take that text box hex color and take its text property. So gets or sets the text content of the text box. That's exactly what we need. So instead of saying hello world now, we're just going to enter whatever code was in there, and we can simply test this. So in here, I'm just gonna say hello in German, hallo, and then as you can see, hallo comes up. Or I can enter a color, so hash FFFF, search pixel, and as you can see, it's displayed. Okay, so we have the connection between our text box and our button. They are already working, we get the text, so now we can use that color in order to search our screen. And therefore we need a new method. Private bool search pixel, and here we need the hex code. So I'm just gonna say, okay, let's get the hex code. In this search pixel method, we of course need to return something because we're using bool here. So let's return false. And now we need to take an image from the screen, because what we are going to do is we take the image and then our program will go through every single pixel on that image, and then we'll say, okay, this particular pixel has the same color as you have entered. So let's create an empty bitmap with the size of the current screen. And what we need therefore is to add this reference. So right click onto references, add reference, and here we're going to need some references. And one of them is system.drawing. So system.drawing, this one here. Now that we have added the reference, we can use the namespace. So let's get rid of all the unnecessary namespaces and let's add the one for drawing, which is required for color, bitmap, and graphics, which we're gonna need. For screen, we needed another reference, which is system.windows.forms. And now we can import that one as well. So you can see using system, Windows Forms, screen height and width. Once we import that, our message box starts to complain. So we need to add this particular line here saying using message box, which is within system.windows.messagebox, because there are message boxes within the system Windows namespace and within the system Windows Forms namespace. And our program needs to know which one of those we are using. And we're going to use the one from Windows instead of the one from Forms. So now we have this little bitmap with the size of the current screen. And next we need to create a graphic object that can capture the screen. So this graphics object will take care of taking a screen. And as you can see, it takes it from the image bitmap as an image. And next we can go ahead and take that screenshot. So there is a method within our graphics object, which is called copy from screen. And it takes the bitmap's size, and these are parameters here in source X, source Y, destination X, and destination Y, which just performs a bit block transfer of the color data. So this will just take the whole screen pretty much and will create a screenshot. Next, we of course need to have the right color. So we need to know which color the user actually wanted. And that's the color that we have entered here. But we have entered it as hex code, and we don't need it as a hex code. We need it as a color object. So we create a color object called desired pixel color, and we translate it from our HTML, which is our hex code. So something like #FFFF. So for example, translating our hashtag 6F to a color object. That's the idea behind this, because we now can compare two colors to each other. So we can compare the color of our screen at a particular pixel to the color that the user has entered. Now we can go ahead and run through every single pixel of our screen using two for loops. So one for loop is going to take care of every single column, so every single X value of our screen. And another for loop is going to take care of every single row of our screen. So this additional for loop will take care of that. So in here, we can run all the code that we want to run for every single pixel. And as we are doing this with a lot of different pixels, we have to be very short and brief with the code that we enter here. Because if it's extensive code and if it's heavy code, then this could take forever. Because just a full HD screen already has around 2 million pixels. So whatever code we enter in here will be executed 2 million times for a full HD screen. For a 4K screen, it would even go ahead and do that 8 million times and so forth. If you have 3 4K screens connected, then it would even repeat itself 24 million times. So we're gonna keep it simple. We just get the color of the current pixel, and then we check if the color has exactly the same value as our desired pixel color, so the color that the user has entered. Now, what shall we do if this happens? First of all, we can of course use a message box show. So we show the user, okay, found the pixel at a specific position, and then next we want to set the mouse cursor. So here we have a to do, set mouse cursor, and double click. And of course we can return true here to get out of this whole method here, search pixel. Now you might have wondered what this bitmap does and what this primary screen bounce width and screen bounce height does. This is basically just the width of our screen and the height of our screen. But then why did we use something different here where we said virtual screen? Well, systeminformation.virtualScreen.width gives us the width of the whole screen in general, so the complete screen containing all the monitors that are connected. In my case, I have 3 monitors, so it will take the width of every single monitor and combine it. So this is actually what we need for the bitmap itself as well if we have multiple screens connected. So this line that we have used here is going to be perfectly working for one screen. But once somebody else wants to use your application and has multiple screens, this code will not work anymore. So we have an alternative which basically uses the same approach as we have here with the system information virtual screen. So let's just use that instead, where we say, okay, create an empty bitmap with the size of all connected screens. Okay, so you see the difference? And here it's important to figure those things out. The cool thing is I tested it with one screen and it worked perfectly fine, but then I added another screen and suddenly my code didn't work anymore. And that's something that you always have to take into consideration when developing something like that. All right, so now that we have this search pixel method, we can go ahead and actually use it. So we had this message box earlier on, which we just used. And in this case, we want to go ahead and use the input hex color code, not to just display it on a message box, but actually search for a pixel with that color. So we won't need that message box here anymore. We just had that for testing purposes. And let's just test it for now. So let me get a particular color for it. So I'm going to take a brownish color from here. I'm going to enter it and I'm going to search for that pixel. And now my program is running and it says, okay, at 810,464, it found the color. So now let's move this a little bit to the top left corner and search for the pixel again. And as you can see now, the value has changed. If you want to test it again, you can move it around and you can see, okay, now the X and Y coordinates are different. So if I position it at the very top right corner, the X value should be something around 2,400 or so. There we are, 2,439 and 32 pixels. So that's the 32 is the height away from the top of my screen. And the first value, this 2,439, is from the left hand corner towards this color here. And that's because I have a WHQD monitor installed. All right, so now we just need the double click functionality. So what do we need for that? And that's exactly step 2. As I said, the first step was to find the color and the second step is to double click. So click on a specific X and Y position on the screen is what we do now. And therefore we need to import the user32DLL, which is a Windows user interface dynamic link library. That DLL contains a method called mouse event, which is, for example, a mouse click or a mouse drag or stuff like that. And the method takes a flag as a parameter, which defines the input to simulate. So in this case, mouse event 0x02 will be a click down, and the other one is release the click. So the flag is a hexadecimal number, in this case 0x02 and 0x04, and 0x02 stands for left mouse button down, and 0x04 stands for LMB, so left mouse button up. And you need both of them, otherwise it's like you're dragging. So you're holding the click and you're not releasing it, so you're dragging your mouse. Okay, that's why we need LMB up as well, so the 0x04. So the DLL also contains a method to move the mouse, set cursor position, and it just needs an X and a Y value, so it needs to know to which position you want to set your cursor, and then you can simply say, okay, move the mouse to a X and Y coordinate, and then go ahead and double click. So import the user DLL by using this following code. So it's called DLL import, and then in brackets and quotation marks user32DLL, and we can then go ahead and use that functionality. So I'd say let's go into the code and see that in practice. So the search pixel method is almost done, but next we need to add all of these additional lines of code, which first of all is our mouse left button down. and our mouse left button up. So within my main window class, I'm just going to create this private constant. So this is a uint32, which is called mouse event tf left down, and then the other one is mouse event left up. So this one is to click and this one is to release. And we will need those in order to click our mouse and use the click method, which we're going to implement later on. Next, we can go ahead and use this DLL that I was talking about. So this user32 DLL, and we can import it by using the following code. And in order to use DLL imports, we also need to add a new namespace. So the namespace is called System Runtime Interop Services. Now our DLL import is still complaining, and that's because we're not actually adding anything yet. So we added this little attribute, but we didn't add the actual mouse event that we wanted. So as you can see, it's a private static extern, which pretty much means that this method is not within our namespace. It's within this user32 DLL, and it's called mouse event. And there we have multiple parameters that we can use, and the only one that we're actually going to use is this W flags, which is going to be our mouse event left down or mouse event left up. So we're not going to need any of the other ones. All right, now what we can do is we can go ahead and create a little method which will take care of clicking. So now let's go ahead and create a click method. In this click method, I want to go ahead and use this mouse event method. So I'm going to say mouse event, and here I need to enter the DW flags, and these ones that we have created here, these constants, these are those flags. So I'm just going to use this mouse event left down flag, and then it just needs some additional parameters. I'm just going to enter 0, 0, 0 for now to keep it simple. And we need to do the same thing for our mouse event left up. So we have one for the mouse event left down and the other one for up. And this click method will simply perform a click now. In order to test this click, we can do something very simple. So let's go ahead in our search pixel. And here, once it has found our pixel, we are just going to call this click method. So let's start our application. Let's go to the screen. I'm going to drag Assassin's Creed to the top left, and I'm going to search the pixel and move over to Assassin's Creed. So for now, we have not added the mouse cursor movement yet. We've just said, okay, we have a click event now. So let me press enter. And as you can see, it clicked on Assassin's Creed. In order to show it a little better, we should use a double click. So let's call click twice with a little pause in between. So let's just say here we have a system.threading.thread.sleep for 250 milliseconds. So what this will do is it will simply pause our application for 250 milliseconds and then perform the next line of code, which is another click. So let me show you this again. So I search for the pixel, I go with my mouse over Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I press enter, and this time it performed a double click. So I didn't have to do it myself, it automatically happened. All right, so now we can go ahead and take care of moving our mouse as well. So I'm going to get rid of these lines of code, or actually I'm going to cut them, because we are going to create a new method, which will be our double click method, by the way. So this method will also need a X and a Y coordinate. So pose X and pose Y. Okay, now we have the double clicking, but we need also to move our element to that position X and Y. So in this case, our mouse to that X and Y. And in order to move it, we need to implement the set cursor position. So in the user DLL, this user 32 DLL, there is another method called set cursor position. That one here, which is also an external one, which has a Boolean. So did it move it or not? And then we can see that it has an X and a Y coordinate where it wants to be positioned. And now, of course, we can go ahead and use that. So before we double click, we just say, okay, set our cursor to that particular position. All right, so now we can go ahead and use our double click add position in our search pixel method. So right in here to do set mouse cursor double click. So let's do that. The method was called double click add position. So let's copy this. And here we need the X and the Y coordinate. So what is this X coordinate? Well, it's the one from the for loop. So it's the column within our screen, and the Y coordinate is the row within our screen. So now we can test our application and it should basically do what we want it to. So let's select Assassin's Creed once again. So let's get the color first. And here, getting a color, a brown color, search the pixel, and it might not be visible for you. So the mouse movement, so the cursor movement might not be recorded by my recording software. So you will still see that Assassin's Creed will be double clicked now. So let me click on it, then press enter. And as you can see, it double clicked my Assassin's Creed Odyssey. All right, so that was it. That's our pixel bot. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have a particular use for it, then please let me know what you use it for. I'm really excited to see what kind of different use cases there are for this application. And of course, you can extend it. You could use multiple text fields here instead of just one and saying, okay, double click on one element, then a second later, double click on another element and so forth. By the way, if you liked the video, then please leave a like. If you loved it, then please leave a sub. And of course, check out one of the next 2 videos. As always, thanks a lot for watching.
Lions roaring in the morning sun, searching for a longer day. People feeling like the light has just come. We must never stop the way.